All right, but again, so then you rat them out to the board.
To the board of engineers?
Yeah, and to Pete. I was rat them out to Pete. All right, and this was harped on the last couple of days as well. Just because somebody wrote the plan, somebody stamped the plan, doesn't relieve the facility owner or operator from having to implement the thing. Right? There's only so much of this Northrop saluting one can do. You know? I mean, you have to implement the plan, not just blame the engineer. Right? Well, the engineer wrote it, but it's your plan. Just remember that, you facility folks. All right, this is the PT attestation, right? There's at least 5 elements, and then for the oil production, produced water people, these elements. Now, what's one real quick and simple check to make sure that your plan writer at least isn't a complete nog? That it has this wording. Again, I've seen several plans, recent plans written in the last couple of months, written by, again, folks that tout their SPCC experience that have the old pre-2002 wording in it. That's hardly a typo. You know, that's kind of a good, that's kind of a good tell-all right there, right? That they know the procedures have been established. This kind of tells you that they need to do a pretty decent job as to evaluating what procedures for inspection or testing are required, right? Then there's the facility self-certification for which facilities? Qualified facilities, right? And that's where the facility owner operator has to review and certify it. The rule does not specify a particular management level, but who really should it be? The highest level of operational management, or the highest level of any management at that particular location. Can you have somebody from corporate, 5 states over, certify all the plans for all the distribution centers in California? Yes, if that manager has been and is familiar with every single one of those places. They actually have to have feet on the ground at that facility, not just fly over or do the high Christmas party visit. Has to be somebody there who's familiar with the facility. So keep that in mind if you're doing corporate plans for a bunch of different places, right? And whoever's certifying it needs to understand what they're certifying and the nature of that commitment. They're not just, it's not like, again, I mean, it's not like signing your tax form. This actually means something. So remember, who has to visit and examine the facility, right? If it's a PE certified plan, the professional engineer or their agent, right? I'm not a professional engineer, right? I write a bunch of plans, right? I have a professional engineer who also writes plans, but he certifies my plans. Some facilities he really wants to go to walk around and be familiar. Most of them he doesn't. The ones that he wants to walk around and be familiar, those that are fun. And not located in hellholes. The qualified facility plan member, owner operator whose side, hey, what's an APSA class without a spelling error? Agents are not allowed, so keep that in mind. All right, what do you guys think of this plan certification? All right, okay, we'll talk about management approval in a second. Here's the PE certification. Does it have the 5 attestation elements? I certify that I am familiar with the provisions and I or my agent visit the facility, the SPCC, prepare in accordance with good engineering practices, procedures for required inspections and testing have been established, and this plan is adequate for this facility. Is that the appropriate language? What the hell is following it? In bold type. Capitals. This plan is not fully certified until the requirements set forth in Section 6, required facility correction. What's up with that? Right? That's like a conditional certification. Now, what if there are certain things at the facility that aren't quite yet installed or aren't quite yet in compliance or aren't quite yet up to speed? Can that still be addressed in the plan? Yes. Right? 40 CFR 112.7A2, right? Procedures and methods not yet in place and equipment not yet in place. They can address that, but it has to be specific along with implementation dates or schedule. It can and should and must be addressed in the plan. That ain't the place for it, right? And if you're a facility and this is your plan, you have an outside consultant doing this, Well, to me, this is like red flag, high amount of compliance.
That might contradict what we were talking about earlier, getting a certification from your consultant that they know what they're doing.
In their defense, these are buddies of mine. I've read their plan. I called them up. I'm like, you maybe want to move that to a different section, you know, because again, I mean, and at this particular facility, they did not actually really comply with those requirements. So it invalidated the plan, invalidated the certification, and it kind of gave the CUPA inspector this wonderful list of where they're out of compliance. Don't do this here. And you know, like, and just as just what we do, if there's things in if there's things that are not in a place, if it's bad enough or if it's incomplete enough that there's some real problem, it's not just minor stuff like get more spill kits, you know, fix a drain. If it's anything, you know, much bigger than that, we'll tell our client we can't certify it until the stuff is fixed. You know, and that's just us, and you know, maybe other folks do that too, but you know, yeah.
You cover, but you also, are you going to be covering like letters of recommendations or things like that have to be the SPCC that you're recommending?
Okay, we will, well, do we have like letters of recommendation or other kind of yeah, we may have recommendations that are not really compliance related, or maybe they are, and until we certify the plan, yeah, but I send them in a separate letter. I want to keep the plan clean. Because that plan's going to stick around for a bunch of years. How many years? Till it's revised or till it's reviewed. I don't want this kind of stuff in a plan. I mean, if they, yeah, I put it in a separate letter. You bet. Good point. Fireball? Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we just wouldn't certify and say, look, whenever you get this fixed, let us know. We'll come out and we'll recertify it. Yeah. Yeah. It's up to you. It's up to you. I've had. It's up to you. As are you CUPA? Okay, up to you. All right, up to you. I've had facilities where the plan wasn't in place yet, and the CUPA or the PA has gone over there. Yeah, look, we're working on it. We swear to God. Look, here's our contract, and you know Steve's been out. All right, just let us know when he's done. We've had other places. I swear to God, we're working on it. We have a contract with Steve. Look, he's already been out there. It's like, oh, that's terrific. He's a good guy. Here's your notice of violation. You know, it's up to you. You know, it's up to you, and how you handle. It depends on the facility, but it depends. You know, but it depends on what kind of risk do they pose. You know, that kind of stuff. Pete.
I would be looking at time frames for what the issue is, what the certification or requirement to achieve certification would be, how long that time frame has been out of sync, and that is something that CUPA inspectors should be looking at too, determining whether it's reasonable. If the owner operator is saying, hey, we're working on this, we're going to have this done in a reasonable time frame, that could be checked upon with the certifying PE or the consultant doing that.
But they should have a written schedule, and you want to track that schedule, not just day 1, we're going to contract with somebody, day 95, we're going to have a certified plan in place. You need, hold their feet to the fire and verify it and check it. Well, no, I know, but I mean, if you want to see a schedule, ask them for a schedule. Just like any other CUPA or PA inspection, hazardous waste, CalARP, it's the same thing, right? Now, if they do put in, and we've done it, a lot of engineers, consulting firms or facilities have put it in their plan. Well, here, 112.7A2. Here's, systems, equipment, methods that are not yet in place. Here's what they are, and include a detailed schedule. Engineer certified, that's fine. Then what are you looking at? Are they tracking according to that schedule? Right? Right. And if they're not, and how you track that schedule, because you do inspections at least once every 3 years, I don't know, it's up to you. Right? Maybe have them send in, periodic report, status reports. But that's in their plan, that's part of their compliance implementation. that they need to track. Okay, now remember, not to harp on this, but just a quick reminder, US EPA has the regulatory authority to require that the plans be updated for better control or to correct things and all that. You, the Unified Program Agency folks who are in there, you can say this doesn't meet requirements, you need to fix it within X number of time, within, Humpty Dump days. But if you just don't like how something's written, you have to find some other way to say, well, we want you to upgrade it, rather than saying, I don't like this and we're going to require you to upgrade. If it's a violation, it's a violation. It's up to them to figure out how to fix it. It's up to you, the facility, to figure out how to fix it. Just kind of keep that in mind. All right. Okay, when does the owner or operator have to amend the plan? When? Whenever there's a change. Cool, the new hard came in, right? Basically, if there's been any technical change in the facility or its operation, right? So new tank, different service, increased protection, decreased protection. If it's a technical change, when does the facility have to amend their plan and have it recertified? Yes? If it's we'll hit that. Basically, if it's an question is what, if you take out equipment, put in equipment, what kind of change is that? If it's an in-kind replacement, no worries. If it's different equipment, will it materially increase or materially decrease the risk of a discharge? It's an engineering question. It's a qualitative question. You may. It may not impact that. It's a subjective determination. Yeah. All right. Hang on to that. We're going to hit a couple of examples, and we can spend a day on all these different examples. Right. We'll use that one. But for example, again, significant changes. If you determine, or if the engineer determines it's a significant change, you have 6 months to amend your plan and have it recertified. You have an additional 6 months to implement the plan, should there be any new procedures and all that. Kind of sometimes referred to as the 6 and 6 rule, right? So if you have a piece of equipment comes on your facility, like a portable generator, right, 100-gallon capacity fuel tank on it, do you have to amend your plan each and every time? Even if that generator's on site for a week? How long do you have? When that generator came on site, what got triggered? The 6-month technical change window. That thing's off site within 6 months. Should it be a double-walled generator? Yeah. Should you do things to keep oil from spilling out of it? Yeah. Do you actually have to amend your plan? You have 6 months. I would not recommend waiting 5.5. Good question. If you all of a sudden become subject to SPCC rule, and you were not before, this is a great question. All right? When does that, let's say you have 1,000 gallons of oil or petroleum at your facility. You bring on a 500-gallon capacity temporary emergency generator. That thing drives onto your property on January 1st. When do you have to have an SPCC plan in place and implemented? January 1st. Okay? And when you first become subject, if you all of a sudden become subject to the rule, you have to have a plan in place and implemented before, at the time you become subject. You don't get that 6 months. Before it becomes operational, right? So that means maybe the folks who are doing facility planning ought to be communicated with. Just it's going to happen. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. All right, so there you go. So an example, again, if you take out a 5,000-gallon tank and you put in two 2,500-gallon tanks, technical change, yeah. You take out a gasoline tank, or you have a 5,000-gallon gasoline tank, You swap out the gasoline with E85 ethanol gasoline. Same basic stuff, right? Same basic stuff. Same response. It's going to be the same response, same hazard. You swap out a diesel tank, a diesel fuel in a tank. Now you put gasoline in. Oh yeah. What's different about it? Flammability, the hazard, your response protocols. You bet. The flow characteristics, yeah. You know, between biodiesel like B99 or B80 versus diesel, probably, but that's a question. Yeah.
Yeah, but for a non-technical, like, so you change the one, not the fuel, the gasoline, the one before, where it doesn't require a technical change.
Yeah.
Still required to update your plan.
You have to keep your plan updated, but
Would that be administrative?
that's administrative. But I mean, really, until the 5-year review cycle hits, and please, correct me if I'm wrong. I always like to see the plan amended. But if it's, like a non-technical change, you don't have to amend your plan except at the 5-year review. Although you really should, you really should keep your plan updated. What do you think? Yeah, I mean.
Administrative changes could be plugged in as an addendum or changed in the document without recertification.
Yeah, handwrite it in, change it in, yeah. Hang on one sec, yeah. Yes. Yes. Removal, yeah. Yep. Yep. We're going to address 55-gallon drums and other portable containers.
Why would that
You're removing tanks, you're lowering the potential for discharge because you have fewer tanks. It's good for me. I'm a consultant because I have to amend your plan. We're talking about what the rule says. We're talking about what the rule says. That's what the rule says. Material increase or decrease in the risk of a release. You get rid of tanks, you have materially decreased the risk. Well, but in the SPCC rule, that triggers a technical amendment. Don't technical amend your plan at your risk. That kind of change should not cost a lot of money. You got to pay for the PE, but come on. Somebody's going to charge you 10 grand or 5 grand to do that, you're getting ripped off. I'm telling you. Yeah. Yeah. No, you have to specifically list amount of oil in which container and what type. And then for drums, it's easy. For portable containers, it's easy, all right, if you do it the right way. But yeah, it has to be accurate. It has to be accurate. You can't just reference another document that changes all the time. You can't. That has to be in the plan. Yes. Yes. Well, if it change enough. Right, going to different grades of gas, no. Going to different grades of diesel, probably not. That's why when we reference, the lube and hydraulic and motor oil tanks, I call it lube and oil and hydraulic miscellaneous types of oil. So I don't need to change it all the time. That's how I do that. All right, we've already mentioned this before, right? Changing the contents, but this was one where they got rid of a 70-gallon base fuel tank, and they went to a 3,000-gallon underground tank and a 10-gallon day tank. This is a good example. They took out that 70-gallon tank. Why would that necessarily require a PE review of the risk and an amendment of the plan? Right, but this is an example of why, right? So the engineer, I'm going to amend the plan, not just take out that 70-gallon diesel tank. I'm going to look at, well, what changed? Oh, now all of a sudden it's going from an underground tank, not really regulated, the SPCC, going into a 10-gallon day tank, not regulated under APSA, right? Into the generator. Remember the issue with the floats on the day tank? This is why you look at it. Because now in the plan, this is an oil transfer operation, right, that needs to be addressed. So I put in the plan that every year they have to check and verify and calibrate their high-level controls on this little day tank that's not regulated. Why? What's the goal of the plan? Keep oil out of the navigable waters. If this thing fails, 3,000 gallons of diesel is going in the storm drain. That's why. Even though they, quote, reduce the risk by removing that 70-gallon base tank. That's why. Yeah. All right. Owner-operator has to review. Remember, they have to actually, read it and sign it and mean what it says. Right? Every 5 years, at least every 5 years, facility has to do a review of the plan. Right? And then change it if necessary. What if there are no technical changes? Does a PE have to recertify after a 5-year review? No. A lot of facilities want that. It's fine. But it's not required. Huh? How would you know? What would be a great way to document whether or not the facility reviewed it? How about a log? Right? What would you put on this log? I have reviewed this plan on such and such a date. And as a result of this review, I will or will not update the plan. And if you're in Idaho, I will not update this plan, and nothing the government can do will make me. Right? Has to be documented, have to say certain things. All different ways to do this. Right? This is just the way that we do it. What changed, when's the next review date, what's the description, whether or not a recertificate. This is just our way. There's like a billion other ways, right? This is just our way. But what's actually the only thing required on one of these 5-year review logs? That's it. Review date, is an amendment needed, and the signature. That's it. That's it. But we put in other stuff, but this is it. Yes. The 5-year clock starts after the previous review, whether it's a technical amendment or not.
So if a PE reviews your plan due to a technical change, he's recertifying the whole plan?
He's recertifying,
Not just
unless,
change?
I've seen it done both ways. If you're a facility contracting with somebody to review a plan, or whatever, you're having an engineer, review, recertify the plan, always an opportunity to look at the whole thing, because you never know. The certification still applies to the whole plan, and then there's the assumption that the previous certification was valid, so it changed. Yeah. Yeah, you might as well make him do his job or do her job and read it. And again, anytime you have somebody review the plan, it's an opportunity to review it. Now, this is a management certification. Who ought to be in the review cycle? Yeah, management, absolutely. Who else? The people who actually are implementing this thing. Right? Hey, how have you guys been doing? Are you actually carrying this out? Right? Because if they're doing something different than what's in the plan, what may need to change? One or the other, but certainly one of them. Yeah, well, yeah, no kidding. Easier to change the plan, but it's always an opportunity to review the plan. Even though this is a 5-year cycle, how often should somebody be reviewing the plan? At least every year. That's a recommendation, right? Yeah.
If you wanted to improve an inspection form.
This may be a difference of interpretation. My opinion, and everyone knows what those are like, my opinion is that if the visual inspections, now we're not saying change an industry, like we're not saying, all right, we were just looking at it, but now we think we're going to do the Steel Tank Institute, SP001. Like if it's just the visual inspection, you have your inspection protocol and your inspection form. The assumption is you do it right, the plan is certified, that's all cool. You want to tweak and change it, you want to do something different. If it was certifiable before, as long as it still has all the required elements, my opinion is that does not trigger, a technical change. If I'm going from, say, a monthly inspection, but they want to do it weekly, fine. If they want to go from weekly to monthly, it's all right. They want to go weekly to annual, down over my dead body. Right? What I tend to write in plans now is that particularly for those, and I've got a bunch of facilities that do daily inspection. They're insane. They do daily inspection, they do weekly inspection. I put in, they do daily to monthly. It could vary. That way they can change, but it's at least they do it monthly. when I write plans, I tend to write in as much flexibility as I possibly can, so they don't have to keep changing their plan. And you're writing it for compliance implementation. They say, no, we always do it weekly. Fine, weekly to monthly.
So if you have an extreme example is, you got a plan that has a daily inspection, but no documents, doesn't even tell you what they're looking for.
But that's the only inspection. But that's the only inspections they do. Then the plan doesn't meet requirements because they have to keep it. Has to be a written schedule and written procedures and instructions. Now there, anybody. Yes, anybody could write a plan. Infinite number of monkeys. If it's out of compliance, yeah, for something like that, I'd have a PE recertify the plan. And again, there's different PEs and plan writers who will have a difference of opinion whether changing an inspection form or minor tweak in frequency is a technical change or not. It's difference of opinion. Yeah.
What if we going around and mentioned a lot of different categories, but fuel operations, fuel transfer, truck comes up, whether it's say maintenance yard, they're coming up to fill up the tank with diesel, whatever,
Yep.
take off, or coming and it's the same location like where they actually are filling the tanks or the main 5,000 gallon tank. Is there I haven't been able to find anything yet. If there's mandatory one, say it takes hours to transfer this stuff. Somebody has to stay there and watch the whole 5 hours. Does somebody have to be there?
My opinion,
Somebody from the site as well?
my opinion is that the overfill prevention provisions and the general containment provisions, because it's a loading area, have to be complied with, right? And sometimes that means somebody's there all the time while that's going on and they can do active response and they can do all this stuff, right? They have to watch the filling, they have to shut everything up. In some other cases, whether it's passive containments, whatever spills, it's going to be retained, and there's automatic shutoffs and all that stuff and alarms, that may be sufficient. It's a performance standard, but it depends on the risk. My personal opinion is if somebody, they can't just lock the handle and say, well, that's going to take 5 hours, No, it depends on the risk. The more automated the system, the more passive and the more size the containment, that may be adequate, because don't forget, what's that engineer certifying to? Their certification means something, that the plan is adequate for the facility. And it's up to the engineer. You can get an engineer to stamp anything if you get the right kind of engineer, right? Just like consultants, you get a consultant to write anything. I mean, believe me, we'll write anything, right? That's why it has to be according to the risk. It has to be reasonable. If that in the engineer and the plan writers and the facilities belief and experience and expertise provides adequate spill protection, it's fine. It's fine. That's fine. That's fine. But what happens if that screws up and the stuff goes in the drink? Pete will knock on the door. All right, content verification. I've harped on this all day. Go through your plan, use one of the checklists, make sure it has everything in there. One of the easy fixes and one of the big problems I see in many plans, stuff is missing. There's no excuse for that. There's too many checklists out there. Make sure it's in there. Now, what if it's in there in one section but not another, because there are some duplicate areas? Then say, this is found in this section, right? Remember, if they have a cross-section and it's not necessarily clear, use the checklist. Man, I read through this 3 times, and then I found it. All right, it's still in there. Verify the content. This is where using your inspection checklists, using the verification, huge help. Do not let anybody write an SPCC plan for you or certify it without showing you that everything is in there.